Do you ever feel overwhelmed? Not by anything in particular, but just life. The journey of life can be daunting between working to pay the bills, growing your relationships to keep your family afloat. And then, where does that leave time for yourself and your personal health? Welcome to the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast, where we are all about juggling and managing all of your responsibilities to be by your side in growing through it all. This brand is here to help you achieve your goals. Whether they are personal and emotional goals you set for yourself, business goals you want to hit in your career, or physical and nutritional goals you want to accomplish to be a healthier version of yourself. Whatever your goals are, stay tuned for tips and tricks to make accomplishing them easier for you. Each episode will help you significantly improve in one aspect of your life or another.
Hey, Instagram and Facebook family. It's me, Caitlin, with the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. And I am recording this episode of the podcast on grace. And let me just say, I'm having to give myself grace today because this is not an optimal time to record this podcast, but I'm doing it to get the message out to you guys. Whether you're watching it live, thanks for all the hearts, good to see you. Or if you're catching the replay, or if you're listening to the podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. Now, the reason I'm extending grace to myself right now is because right now we are in the process of moving furniture around our home to fit our new baby. And my office is out of whack, but I am not letting that stop me from certain goals that I have. So on today's podcast, I'm going to talk about how you can hit your goals as a mom in your fitness, in your finances, or your business, and just like your everyday life, but extending yourself grace and others grace. Because for me, grace was something that I really didn't know much about. I didn't know how much the Bible talked about it. I didn't know that I should incorporate it in my daily life so much. I had no idea what grace was, and it blinded me to the many ways that God was extending me grace, others around me was extending grace to me, and how I could extend grace to others. And honestly, if you're a mom, you probably know that there's so many times where we need to extend grace to ourselves instead of trying to be this perfect mom or get everything right the first time. So extending grace is so important. The Bible talks about extending grace, or what grace is, way more than 10 times. It's multiple scriptures where God will talk about him giving grace to us, but another scripture says, but to each one of us grace has been given. So that's why I really want to hone in on how you should have grace with yourself to hit whatever goals you have, but also how to have grace with others. My sister Danielle, she wakes up every single morning and she prays that prayer of having grace with others, because in the workplace, you could be dealing with some hard-headed people or some people that's hard to love. Even on your way to work, whenever the knucklehead just cut off in front of you and you had to slam on your brakes, like having grace in those moments, it's so hard. So that's why I really wanted to do this podcast, so you could listen to ways that you could extend grace to others and then give it to yourself, because it's in those hard moments that we really have to practice that grace muscle. So whether I'm in my office or not, let's dig deeper into grace and this podcast. And definitely comment below your thoughts if you needed to hear this, and then ways that you may be extending grace that you want to share for sure. I definitely want to start with ways that we should give grace, because as a mom, you have to learn how to give grace to your children, but also how to give grace to yourself and how to receive it. So for me, grace is that amazing feeling where I make a hiccup in life, or I am not perfect, so maybe I sin, there's a boo-boo, I did something wrong, and whoever I hurt still loves me. Personally, that's what grace is for me. So what is grace to you? It's overwhelming for me because it's just like the perfect depiction of God's love, and I love receiving that now that I'm aware of it. And whenever I receive it, it definitely makes me more motivated to continue to give it to others too, definitely out of love. So as a mom, we have to learn how to give grace to our children because let's be real, they are not going to get it right the first time. They are not perfect and they are going to make mistakes. And I'm saying this fresh into motherhood, like toddler years here, and I'm going to have to continue to remind myself as my kids grow up that they are going to make mistakes, but I have to continue to love them and give them grace in those moments because that's the same thing that God would do for us. Way easier said than done. So there's your daily reminder, whether your kids are running around like crazy, they're arguing with each other, extend them grace, continue to love on them. Don't go stoop down to their level just because they're driving you crazy. You continue to be that leader and that role model and extend them grace. As a mom, you also have to learn how to receive grace for yourself. I know some of us get hung up on looking at Pinterest for all these amazing ideas. And before I was a mom, I said so many things that I wasn't going to do. And now I do them. But you know what? We are alive. We are thriving. We are blessed. We are thankful. So I have to extend grace many times a day to myself and say, you know what? It's okay that you're not this picture perfect mom that you think you want to be or that you think you can be. You're still killing it as a mom. So those are ways as a mom that I have to give myself grace. And the same thing is true when it comes to being a wife. I have to give grace to my husband and I have to receive grace. And I think it comes down to me being such a perfectionist that I'm always saying, oh, I'm never going to do this and things are going to be this way. So whenever I do make a mistake, I used to beat myself up about it. But now in those moments, I just give myself grace and I receive grace from my husband for whatever it is that I made a hiccup on because I'm not perfect. And as a wife, I don't remember everything. And as a wife who's 3 years into her marriage, I'm still learning so much about my husband. So that's how I receive grace as a wife. And I guess you could say the same is true as a wife and how I give grace to my husband. I'm learning this. As we are growing together, things are changing. So I can't hold him accountable to things that he may have done or said in the past. We're growing old together. That's what we vowed to do. So I have to give him grace and not be a stickler and say, well, you said X, Y, and Z and you're changing your mind. Or different standards like that. We have to extend grace to our husbands in that way, but also realizing that just like we're not perfect, they're not perfect. So whenever they do make mistakes, being a safe place and letting them express themselves to us is so important, and to show them God's grace in hopes that they would do the same thing for us if we were to make a mistake or when we make a mistake, because we know it's inevitable. It's going to happen. We are not perfect. We are all human. So that's why grace is so important in your marriage, as you are building a family, even in your physical health. The reason you should extend grace to yourself when you're trying to better yourself physically, nutritionally, is because unless you are a robot or you're getting it right all the time, there will be times where you mess up on your diet. There will be times when life just gets so busy and you compromise and it's not within your normal standard that you normally would do. So in those moments, you have to give yourself grace and say, that's okay. I messed up. I ate the wrong thing, or I didn't work out like I said I would. But what are you going to do tomorrow? Are you going to operate out of that grace and say, you know what? I'm letting that go. It's in the past. Let me kick butt today. Or are you going to hold on to the bitterness and the mistakes that you've made and not give yourself grace? I mean, that's just in your physical health or your nutritional health for whatever goals that you have set in that arena of life. And that's why I always tell my clients, like, whenever you are trying to live a healthier lifestyle, don't set the bar so high to where when you fall, it hurts. Just start changing daily disciplines and habits in your day to where it's tough to fall. And if you do fall, you can get right back up and keep moving. And it's easier to extend that grace to yourself because it's going to happen. For me, a personal example is every time I'm pregnant, like I start off with my vegan diet like I normally eat, and then the cravings hit or I'm always on the go. So I'm literally eating whatever's around me in moderation. I don't deny food, if you know, if we've hung out together and I was pregnant. So I have to give myself grace and say, you know what? It's okay that you're not vegan. You're giving your body what it needs. So whenever these 9 months of pregnancy is up and then you want to be vegan again, great. Try it out or do it again then. And even then, I can't be such a stickler or else I would beat myself up about it. So whatever your diet goals, your lifestyle goals, or your fitness goals are, do not be a stickler. Learn how to give yourself grace. On another example of fitness, what that looks like is if you say, I'm going to lose 5 pounds this month, it's happening, and then the month just flies by and you've barely lost 2. The right mindset is not saying, man, I didn't lose the weight that I said I was going to lose. I'm such a fatty. I need to give up on myself. The right attitude is saying, you know what? I didn't lose those 5 pounds that I said I was going to lose, but I did lose 2, and I'm going to extend grace to myself because things got busy at work. This life situation happened. So let's try again next month. And who knows, next month you may set that same goal to lose 5 pounds, and then you hit that goal, you lose 5 pounds. You lost 2 the month before. Kudos to you. You lose 7 pounds total. So that's why giving grace to yourself is so important. And I love in those moments when you give grace to yourself, no matter if it's physically, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. Usually when you make that tough decision to give grace to yourself and just get over it, there's a beautiful thing on the other side. Whether it's more weight loss, a better relationship with your spouse, your family, your kids, or just a healthier version of you. So do the hard thing, extend grace to yourself even when you feel like you don't deserve it, and keep pushing forward. The reason I really wanted to do this podcast is because I had somebody message me on Instagram. They are another social influencer who's just really hard on themselves, and they set certain goals for themselves and they haven't been hitting them because they've been moving a lot. A lot of things have been happening in their life that's just changing. So it's hard to set these goals for yourself and hit them when you have so many things changing around you because that's all external. You really have no control over that. So it's like, how do you find that balance of continuing to push forward with these goals that you have, but you have all these external things happening around you? And I just told that person on Instagram that you have to adjust to what's happening around you, but don't lose sight of your goals. So that may mean keeping those same goals, but giving yourself a longer period of time to hit them. Or maybe that means adjusting and changing and minimizing them just a little bit to suit your new lifestyle. Because if you have moved and you're listening to this, you know that's a major change. It takes a long time to adapt to your new environment, depending on your physical location and how far it is that you move from. And depending on if you have a family or not. There's a lot of factors that play into that. Moving is hard, life changes happen. So whenever you set a business goal for yourself, definitely kick butt at it, try your best, but realize life is still happening to you. So when life starts to fall apart, keep that goal in front of you, but understand you can't beat yourself up for what happens around you in life. There's certain things you can control, and then there's others that you cannot. So that's how you should give grace to yourself in your business. And I know personally, as a wife of an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur myself, giving grace is so important because whenever we first met each other, we were doing network marketing, and we just knew that we were going to be these great motivational speakers who excelled at this network marketing company and changed so many people's lives. And I want to say 4 or 5 years into it, we started to see that wasn't really the desire in our hearts anymore. We appreciated the purpose that it served when it did. However, we realized, God may have bigger things for us right now. So let's keep our eyes open and move towards that. But we had to extend grace and say, like, that's okay if we quit something. The word quit has such a negative connotation that we always think it's a bad thing. But if you quit something that served a purpose for you for a reason in that season, it's okay to walk away from it because I'm pretty sure you're going to walk away from it with a lot of life lessons from it. So that's okay. So that was one huge way that we had to extend grace to ourselves. And we're always extending grace to ourselves. Like if you look at the trajectory of Caitlin Foxworth and the business ideas that I've had and the businesses that I've opened up and the many things that I've done, oh goodness, you could have a whole portfolio of things that I've done, things that I failed at, and things that I've learned from and moved forward with. But I don't look at those as failures. I give myself grace and I say, you know what? That was a really good learning period. I'm going to use it later on in life probably, so it's okay. There are so many ways that you have to extend grace to yourself if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner, or even as a college student or high school student. Like, I used to beat myself up whenever I couldn't pass a class or failed a test, and I had to give myself grace because in those moments, nobody else would. My teachers wouldn't, my parents wouldn't, so it was up to me to continue to move forward and give myself grace with that. I really hope this is helping you learn that the best thing that you can ever do is extend grace to yourself and learn how to receive it, and then it becomes so much easier to extend it to others. I just want to finish off with asking you, are you, like in this moment, in this period of your life, are you graceful with yourself? Do you know how to give yourself grace? And in that question, you have to be careful because there's so many times where you'll say, I'm going to do this diet, and then you fail the first day, and you fail the second day, and you don't eat so good the third day, but you just keep giving yourself grace. So you got to be real with yourself sometimes, but still give yourself grace when needed. So there's a balance to it because I was on the other side of that spectrum. I was the one who wouldn't give myself grace, but then you have certain people whose personality types, they give themselves too much leeway and too much grace and they never hit a goal. So that's why finding the perfect balance is so important, and finding an accountability partner to talk to and be real with will definitely get you a different perspective to help you out with that. And lastly, I want to ask, are you giving grace to others? I'll let that sink in for a while because that's tough. You can't honor your relationships and keep nurturing them if you're not choosing to give grace to others. Now, you may be wondering, well, what does giving grace to others in a relationship look like? Number one, it's realizing that nobody is perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. So in that moment where you're so butthurt because they hurt you, they made a mistake, you never thought that person would have done that. Are you giving them enough grace to say, you know what, I understand you're human. Thank you for talking to me about how you felt. Let's move forward from it. Or are you completely giving them the cold shoulder and choosing to cut that person out of your life because they hurt you? That's not grace. And then just like I talked about earlier, there's a fine line. You got to find the balance because you don't want to be in like a relationship with a partner and they continue to hurt you and you're just continually giving them grace because you love them and you keep getting hurt. But then at the same time, if they hurt you one time, it's a minimal mistake and you're able to forgive and move forward from it, give that person grace. My grace muscle is being worked out all the time, and it used to take a while for me to give somebody grace. I used to have to think about it, pray about it, then do it. And after doing it for so long, it kind of became more of an instinct. So I hope and I wish the same thing for you, that you keep fine-tuning that grace muscle for yourself and for others because we all deserve it in order to better our relationships with one another, in order to hit our personal goals that we have in our physical health, in our work life and family life. We all have to give grace and receive grace to some extent. So let that be the message of the week for you. I'm Caitlin with the I Killed My Father's Killer. I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. Number one, the first book is I Killed My Father's Killer. That one is already out. And the second one, I Killed My Own Killer, How Social Media Can Be Killing You Too, is going to be released this summer. I'm super excited about that. So you guys have an awesome week and happy Monday. And remember, give grace, receive grace. Love you all and take care. Bye-bye.
Wow, how about that episode? I know you are motivated to kick your butt into gear and become a better version of yourself from this experience of the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. The crazy title of this podcast comes from the original personal development book series. Each book will transform you even more than listening to this podcast. Each book takes a deeper dive into how you can better yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and even spiritually. Continue your journey of personal growth by being a part of the amazing personal growth book series that is written in a fun fiction way with in-depth journals concluding each chapter. What are you waiting for? Go order your book at www.kfoxworth.com and join the Facebook community in the private Facebook group named I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. You don't want to miss out on the full trifecta experience, including the books, the podcast, and the mastermind community in Facebook groups. Keep your personal growth burning desire on fire and be part of it all. It all starts here. So thanks for listening to the podcast and stick around for more great episodes to keep you growing in all areas of life. You are killing it.